Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's call with Congressman William Timmons, Ralph Norman, and Jeff Duncan. My name is Dirk, and I'll be moderating. Here's how tonight's event is going to work. Congressman Timmons, Norman, and Duncan will each be giving a brief introduction of themselves and some of the recent work they've been doing. After that, we're going to open the floor to constituents like you to ask questions. It's very easy to get into the queue to ask a question. All you need to do is press *3 on your telephone keypad now or at any time during the call. Again, simply press *3 on your telephone keypad if you have a question you would like to ask. And with that, I'll turn it over to Congressman Timmons to get us started. Congressman, the floor is yours, sir.
Hey, thank you, Dirk. Appreciate you moderating tonight. And I want to thank Congressman Duncan and Congressman Norman for joining us. We're currently speaking to all three of our districts. Real quick, if you have a question, dial *3 to get into the queue. Last 3.5 years have been very challenging for this country. I think everybody agrees that we're currently moving in the wrong direction. We're under a one-party rule. The Democrats control the White House, the Senate, and the House, and it's just dysfunctional. It's just dysfunctional. The Republicans right now are united across the board because the Democrats' policies are literally hurting the American people at every turn, whether it is inflation, highest of my lifetime, and the Democrats see no stop in their spending, whether it's border. 2.5 million people have crossed the southern border just in the last 15 months. And they're about to get rid of Title 42, which is the last line of defense for our Border Patrol agents to try to keep even millions more people out. All three of us have been to the border firsthand in the last few years, and it is absolutely disgraceful the way that we are allowing people to cross the border, and they're bringing fentanyl, enormous amounts of fentanyl, enough to kill every American 2 or 3 times over. And this administration is doing nothing to stop it. Energy prices. We've all suffered at the pump. When President Trump left office, we were energy independent. We were net exporters of energy. Just 15 months later, here we are. We're begging Venezuela, Iran, and Russia to bail us out, to produce more oil, to save our environment, but they don't care about the fact that everybody on this call is making choices about whether to fill their car up at the gas pump or buy all the groceries they need. And maybe the worst issue right now we're facing is national security. The way that we left Afghanistan was absolutely disgraceful. And because of it, Vladimir Putin has invaded Ukraine and is committing genocide, intentionally killing women and children right now because we are weak. We are not leading in the global community. We are not leading. Our security is weak. It is it's a bad day in this country, and our weakness causes instability in the global economy. It causes instability all over the world. And we've been fighting against all these policies, been pushing back. We are working hard to make sure the American people know that all of these challenges are the result of the president's policies. He has said, our values have costs. Our values have costs. And they're not our values, they're his values. And his values are creating the prices we see at the gas pump. They're causing inflation because we spent $7 trillion. We're seeing what's happened in Ukraine. These are all his values. They're not our values. And the American people and really the people of the world cannot afford his values. We got 9 months until the election. We are working hard to show the American people the wrong direction they're leading this country. It's very apparent. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Congressman Norman. But first, again, if you have a question, hit *3 to get into the queue. Congressman Norman, take it away.
Thank you, William. Good evening, everyone. I'm Congressman Ralph Norman, and I have the distinct honor of representing the residents of South Carolina's 5th Congressional District. I want to thank Congressman Timmons and Congressman Duncan for being here tonight. First of all, folks, I don't have to tell you, we're in turbulent times in the history of our great country. We'll cover a lot of these issues tonight, hopefully. We can start with the tragedy that's happening to the Ukraine people who are suffering from a very ruthless dictator. Our foreign policy leadership is one of basically not leading and it's dangerous. We're dangerously dependent on hostile foreign countries, especially on critical minerals and foreign oil. From there, let's go to inflation, which all of you are feeling. We're at a 40-year high under President Biden's watch. Everything from groceries to gas are costing us more. Speaking of gas prices, back home in South Carolina, the average price today for a gallon of gas now stands at $3.84 per gallon. The United States has an abundance of energy and natural resources. We're not unleashing these resources, and we're going to have to get back to that once we take over. We can also can't forget about the growing threat of China. While liberals in Congress have been pushing for the Green New Deal, China is opening a new coal plant every week because we refuse to hold them to the same standard. And we can never forget about China's mismanagement of the coronavirus, which caused the greatest health and economic crisis the world has seen in nearly 100 years. Although we have made great strides in defeating the coronavirus thanks to Operation Warp Speed, the current administration continues to use COVID-19 as an excuse to trample over our Constitution. That's why I have opposed vaccine mandates at every turn and have sent several letters calling to finally end ridiculous mask mandates for our children at schools and during air travel once and for all. It has to end. What else? Over the last year, we've seen another war of sorts unfold, this one along our southern border. Folks, this is an invasion that runs against our Constitution. As a sovereign nation, we have borders, and we're simply failing the American people. Our civil order at home has been under attack. Calls to defund the police are irresponsible. Law enforcement officers are the backbone of our community and deserve to be thanked for their sacrifice and service, not disrespected by our politicians. I'm extremely proud that a bill I sponsored recently passed and made its way through the House of Representatives, which would exempt first responders injured in the line of duty from federal income taxes, regardless of their retirement age. This will be a small but encouraging step forward for showing our appreciation for the people that keep us safe. I will continue to fight for the rights of the unborn and the values that South Carolinians hold dear, including your right to protect yourself and your families, but also encouraging and supporting law enforcement to do their job to guarantee the safety of all of our loved ones. Another thing I'm passionate about is stopping the cancel culture, which has crept in way too many ways in every aspect of our life. We see it in the social media, we see it in the college campuses, and even in the corporate culture. Ultimately, our freedom of speech must be safeguarded, and I will continue to lead the fight with Representatives Timmons and Representative Duncan on this front. And parents, I strongly believe that you have the right and the responsibility to make choices regarding your child's education, and it should not be up to the federal government. People ask me all the time, what can I do? The answer is very simple. Get involved. Whether we're talking about a school board or your local or state government, or even those of us in Congress, don't be afraid to call or write letters to your representatives. Do what it takes to get answers from those who serve you. You may not be fully satisfied with their responses, but you can at least be part of the process. You would be surprised how far your voice can go in bringing on meaningful changes to our community. There are a lot of other things going on in Washington right now, and I hope we'll have the time to discuss them tonight. Again, if you have a question, just dial *3. And it's an honor to serve with Congressman Timmons and Duncan in the halls of Congress. And I can say with certainty that their constituents are being well represented. Ultimately, our job is to help find solutions to these problems. And conversations like those are very important to this process. I want to remind everyone to go online and sign up for my monthly email newsletter. It's a great way to stay up to date on what I've been doing for you in Congress. You can sign up on my website at norman.house.gov. And if you're on social media, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching for Rep. Ralph Norman. I look forward to answering questions. Again, it's *3 in a couple of minutes. And I would now like to turn it over to Congressman Jeff Duncan. Jeff.
Thanks, Ralph, and thank you to you and William for kind of putting this call together so we can all talk to constituents and mutual constituents in the upstate of South Carolina. And I want to thank all the people that are on the call tonight for participating. We look forward to talking to you and giving you an update, but also what we're working on in Washington. And I'll look forward to hearing from you, answering your questions, and trying to share some solutions and some knowledge that we have about what's going on up here. We want to fill you in on what we're doing to fight back against the Democrats' one-party rule and their attempt to ram through a radical agenda that will make government bigger and weaker. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, have for the last 4.5 years, and it's no secret that the Biden administration's America Last policies have started several crises since he took office. From the southern border to Ukraine, Afghanistan, the economy, energy sector, Biden's policies are destructive for the American people and for our national security. Tomorrow, the Energy and Commerce Committee of the United States House will hold a hearing with executives of major oil and gas companies. The Democrats who hold the majority in the House and control the committees will try to say that rising gasoline prices are the result of big oil price gouging. Nothing could be further from the truth. While the world is focused on the war over in Ukraine, Americans should also be focused on the wars here at home. And you heard Ralph mention a minute ago the war on our southern border. But the Biden administration's war on the American energy sector is really what I'm focused on and will focus on tomorrow. You know, Joe Biden began increasing Americans' energy costs from day one. He stopped the Keystone Pipeline and ended oil and gas leases on federal land, both onshore and offshore. He's not planning on any future lease sales offshore and onshore for federal land. And he also greenlighted Vladimir Putin's Nord Stream 2 project, bringing natural gas to Europe and making our allies in Europe more reliant on Russian gas. And selling that gas, not only in Europe, but also here in America, helped fund Vladimir Putin's imperialistic aims in Ukraine. So as a result, prices have skyrocketed 81% since the Biden's inauguration, 81%. The real issue at hand is that America is blessed with abundant natural resources, but unfortunately we're cursed with liberal politicians who will harm Americans by making you spend more of your hard-earned dollars on gasoline at the pump versus tapping the natural resources that we have here in this country. This isn't Putin's price hike that we're talking about. This is Biden's war on American energy. He did this from day one. In fact, he did it before day one. During the debate, during the campaign, he said he was going to kill oil and gas leases on federal land. No more drilling on federal land. In fact, he said he was going to end fracking, which led to the American energy renaissance and allowed us to be energy efficient, self-sufficient, and an energy exporter to help improve the quality of lives of so many people around the world. It's past time to flip the switch and restart American energy production. That's what I'm working on. Other things that we're focusing on is, folks, we're $30 trillion in debt. It's a big number. Inflation is skyrocketing. Your congressman, I'm working hard to fight back against the Democrats' radical agenda and reckless spending proposals we see every day here, and help you keep more of your paycheck. Help you have jobs. And if you're a job creator on this line tonight, to help you keep those jobs, keep those employees employed, and help you navigate the cumbersome bureaucratic mess that government has created. Our goal is to streamline government, lessen red tape, lessen taxes, allow you to keep more of your hard-earned money, returning that to you so that you can reinvest in your business, give raises to your employees, and increase their quality of life. The United States is at a real pivotal time, but we'll keep pushing the values and freedoms that you sent us to Washington to protect, despite all of the Democrats' attack on America's founding principles and the liberties we hold dear. Our founding fathers envisioned a limited government, and that should be our focus here in Congress. You've heard me say many times, I came to Congress to focus on jobs, what we can do to help job creators create jobs, keep those jobs on the books, grow their businesses, and employ Americans. I also came to Congress to focus on energy, and you heard a lot about that tonight, and we'll continue focusing on American energy independence, because we should never have a Russian LNG tankers sit in the Boston Harbor to provide New England with natural gas. And the last thing I came to Congress to focus on is our founding fathers, our Constitution, limited government, free markets, individual liberties, enumerated powers, a smaller central government, more power resting with the states and the people. Jobs, energy, and the founding fathers, that's an acronym that spells Jeff. I always thought Jeff was a winning message. So I'll stop there. And remember, *3 on your phone to get in the queue to ask us a question. We've covered a lot of topics here, and I look forward to hearing from you. So that I'll turn it back over to William. Remember, *3 to get in the queue to ask a question. Or Dirk, I guess.
Dirk, we ready for your first question?
Absolutely, gentlemen. We've got Carl from Fort Mill on the line with us right now. Carl, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, my question's about energy, and I've heard it spoken a little bit already, but the fact that we've been blessed with such an abundance of fossil fuel resources in our country, and that we are an importer and have a $30 trillion debt, why aren't we producing fossil fuels at the maximum capacity, since we produce the cleanest fossil fuels and export them? Not only satisfy our needs, but export them and pay down the national debt. If that's clear to us common folks, why isn't it clear to our government representatives?
Well, Carl, this is Ralph Norman. Thank you for the question. Well, the only answer I can give you is he sold out. He sold out to our enemies. We're now, as you mentioned, we were energy independent. We were an exporter for first time, I think, in either 40 or 50 years. And we're buying from OPEC, which is made up of 15 countries that don't like us: Venezuela, Iraq, Iran. And it makes no sense. This administration is sold out to the far left socialist group. And you're right, he's cut off the Keystone Pipeline, but he had no problem with the Nord Stream 2 for Russia, which is not exactly friendly with the United States. His budget has nothing in it for, getting the energy back on track for us that we produce. And there's no explanation for this administration doing this. He sold out our country, and Americans are having to pay the price is the best answer I can give you, unfortunately.
Yeah. Hey, Carl, this is Jeff Duncan, and energy is something I focus on every day here. And Ralph's exactly right. The Biden administration has made it their mission from day one to kill American energy sector. They really push the Green New Deal initiatives. And you heard the Secretary of Energy just recently say that we should look at this rising oil prices and gasoline prices as a perfect opportunity to transition everyone to electric vehicles without the understanding necessarily of where electricity comes from. And most of the power generated in this country is either nuclear power or fossil fuel generated. And so they are preaching and pushing a false narrative. They continue to talk about climate change and U.S. carbon emissions when the United States has led the world for the last decade in lowering our carbon emissions. And it's not because we've signed on to Kyoto or Paris Climate Accords. It's because of entrepreneurs and innovation within the private sector, not government policies doing that. But yet they'll continue to push the Green New Deal initiatives that will cripple America. Under President Trump, we saw a energy renaissance where we were a net exporter of oil. We still import oil to this country, just the way our refineries are set up and the different types of oil that are out there. That a little confusing sometimes. But we were a net exporter. That meant we were exporting more than we were needing here for our own consumption. But Ralph is right. The Biden administration will continue to greenlight Vladimir Putin's Nord Stream 2, continue to make our European allies dependent on Russia. I want to go back to the climate change thing real quick because that continues to be the narrative that they push. The United States has lessened our carbon emissions. We're the leader in the world. But China continues to lead the world in carbon emissions, building new coal-fired power plants every day. They're not held to the same standards. In fact, if you look at the Paris Climate Accord, they were given until 2030, 2035 to even begin lowering their carbon emissions. And so the last thing I'll say on that is Germany was held out as a leader in the world for what they have done in pushing renewables and especially offshore wind production. But just recently, Germany cranked back up their coal-fired power plants, emitting coal and carbon into the atmosphere. So it shows the hypocrisy of Germany and the hypocrisy in a lot of the climate change rhetoric that you hear out there. So we're working every day to return America to energy dominance, to be the net exporter of both natural gas and oil, to help our friends and allies around the world improve their quality of life. And it's a way that we can do it. So American Energy Works. And with that, I'll turn it over to William.
Carl, I just want to finish with this. President Biden has not fulfilled many of his campaign promises. This is one exception. He said on the debate stage, standing next to Bernie Sanders, he was going to end the oil and gas industry, that he was going to stop all permits, he was going to stop drilling, he was going to stop the Keystone Pipeline. He promised to do this in the campaign, and he has delivered on it. And he has tried to tell the American people that it's Putin, that it is inflation, that it is Trump, that it is you name it. He's trying to blame it on anybody, but it is his policies. We were energy independent. We were a net exporter at the end of the Trump administration, and he has caused this. And that's what the American people are going to remember in November. And I just want to make sure everybody appreciates that the decisions that the Biden administration has made are the reason that we have gas prices where they are. His values have cost, and you're paying at the pump, and Americans can't afford it. With that, thank you for the question, and Derek, we'll take another one. Thank you.
All right, here we go. We've got Richard B. coming on the line right now. Richard, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
My question is, why do we not deploy the active denial system to the border to keep the invaders on the other side of the river? The active denial system would definitely prevent the illegals from crossing the river. You could do it, put it on this side, and hit them on the other side. Have you ever heard of the active denial system?
First of all, thank you. The only thing I can figure out, does it make sense in your business or in your family home to let everybody and anybody in? No, it doesn't. And it doesn't make sense for the country to let particularly the criminals that are coming across the border. Look, when we do away with Title 42, and unfortunately this administration will probably do that, we're going to have 18,000 people per day. 18,000 people per day coming across the border. That amounts to over 340,000 per month. A football stadium typically fills 79,000 people. So fill it 4 times, 5 times, that's what you're going to have. Now, why are they doing it? Because we're a nation with sovereign, should be a nation with borders. The Democrats are doing it for votes. Look at what happened in New York, where they're giving them driver's licenses and letting them vote. So it's just to keep the power. And this country does not deserve this. The taxpayers do not deserve this. We can't afford it. Look at the schools that are going to be overburdened by people that can't speak the language, that don't know our culture coming into this country. But the only thing I can tell you is it's just they're selling the country out to keep their power. We don't deserve it. It's sad. We got to stop it. That's why we have elections. And it could not come quick enough to stop this insanity that's going on. Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, with what President Biden and the administration is doing with transferring illegals detained at the border into states like South Carolina and Florida and other places, that means that every state is a border state now, because those illegal immigrants have been brought to our states. One thing that I think we ought to push for, and I've talked with Attorney General Wilson, Attorney General Landry, and a number of others, is the Constitution is pretty clear in Article 4, Section 4. This isn't an amendment to the Constitution. This isn't something that modern day Congresses have added to the United States Constitution. This is in the original document. Article 4, Section 4 guarantees every state that joins a union a Republican form of government, and will protect each against invasion. And it's very clear if you look at the definition, Webster's or anyone else's definition of invasion, that this is an invasion across our southern border. Not a military invasion, but an invasion of people coming in this country. And so the federal government owes to the states that protection and that guarantee clause. And so I think the states have standing now especially even non-border states that are seeing these illegal immigrants brought into their states, and someone ought to file suit. It ought to be a class action of multiple states, and let the Supreme Court determine where the federal government has failed. In my opinion, they have, to fulfill that constitutional role in Article 4, Section 4. Thank you.
I'll finish up. All that we need to do to secure the southern border is undo everything President Biden's done in the last 15 months. I mean, it's wild. Go back to remain in Mexico. I don't know if y'all appreciate what happens. Anybody that crosses the southern border, they say, I'm seeking political asylum because of X, Y, Z. They just make up whatever. And then they are processed, and the government of the United States of America says, do you know anybody anywhere in our country? Could we send you there, pay for you to get there on a plane, and you can wait there until you get your trial for whether you are eligible for asylum. 2.5, 3 million people have gone through that during the Biden administration. And do we need to guess how many people are actually going to show up for their trial? It's not going to be many. So all we have to do is go back to the Remain in Mexico policy, where if you want to come to this country and get asylum, you can come get processed, go back to Mexico and wait there. And when your trial date comes up, you can come back and go see the judge. But this administration won't do that. Instead, they're taking away every tool in Border Patrol's toolbox to stop people from crossing the border illegally, to stop people from flooding into this country. It is their intent to be a country without borders, and we need to hold them accountable for that. Thank you for the question, Dirk. We'll take another.
All right, next up, we've got John from Rock Hill. John, welcome to the phone line here. What is your question, sir? Hello, John. We'll see if we can get... are you there, sir?
John, you got me?
Yes, sir. We hear you. Go ahead with your question.
Oh, okay. I asked before, basically, how did we get into the position we're in? How did the Republicans not notice all this collusion between the media, big tech companies censoring and holding information back? And how come nothing was done to make sure that we wouldn't be in a position we're in today where they're controlling everything?
John, this is Ralph Norman. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I'll just say, first of all, well, I'm not sure we failed to recognize it. Under the Trump administration, the wall was being built. He was denying people access to America. We're for legal immigration. I mean, the country was founded on that. And the problem that the Biden administration has come in, and I don't think anybody really thought he would do this, but he stopped the wall from being built and basically let everybody and anybody in. Now, the problem we've got now, it's each governor has to request for the National Guard to come in. This is a first-class invasion of the country. The governor would have to call in the National Guard to stop it. And we had a long discussion on this today. It's getting to that point because we're at a point of no return. Now, people think of the border states as being Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. We're all border states. I've been to the border twice, and Jeff and William have as well. And the fact is, they're shipping illegals without any identification, any background, any record of medical problems all over the country. And South Carolina is going to be a recipient of people coming in that's going to take advantage of every program known to man in South Carolina as well as other states. Now, what we can do is, and it's going to take, we've got to get the votes to do it, building the wall and having the governors have the nerve to do what it takes to stop them with the National Guard, and that is an option because this is an invasion. But it didn't take us by surprise, other than no one, I think, that voted for Biden thought he would be this extreme and this reckless in opening up America to anybody and everybody from the 165 countries that are coming in. Jeff?
Let me jump in, Jeff. And John, to your point, the media is covering all this up. When President Trump took office, the policies under the Obama administration were continued, where if children are separated at the border from their parents and there's a question as to whose child is whose, they literally were detained for their own safety and for the safety of everyone involved. And the media went insane about Trump putting kids in cages when it was a very temporary thing. It was for their safety, to make sure that we knew who was what, and they weren't being trafficked. It was literally to protect them from potential human smugglers. So the media covered it up for them. And then you got to look at, 2.5 million, 3 million people have crossed the border illegally in the last year and however many months, and nothing, crickets. I mean, it is wild, the disparate treatment of the Trump administration versus the Biden administration. They love when he goes for ice cream and takes a beach trip. And I mean, they ignore the fact that Hunter Biden's laptop was real. I don't know if y'all saw the Washington Post. It released an editorial board statement saying that they were wrong. They were wrong. They were wrong to selectively censor valid and truthful information because they thought it might be disinformation. And what happened? We got a president that can't open his eyes when he talks. I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, I was sitting at the State of the Union, he can barely read a teleprompter. So here we are, we got 2+ years more of this administration, and he's driving this country in the wrong direction. And his policies are costing every single person on this phone call. So the media is complicit. We got to hold them accountable. I'm sure everybody saw that Elon Musk bought a 9% stake and is now on the board of Twitter, and he's going to have some fun. I hope that he continues to do that with Facebook and all the other social media companies. We got to get these people back in line, and honestly, we got to get the media back in line. Journalism is dead, and we got to revive it for any hope of our country surviving. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, William's right. We saw where the media was complicit with Hunter Biden's laptop. They thought it was disinformation, but yet they bought hook, line, and sinker the Steele dossier to try to take Trump down. So it shows the media is part of this, the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, really. So I'm glad he mentioned that. On energy and commerce, we're dealing with telecom communities and big tech. The 230 protections they have that give them some immunity on what they put in and allow them to do the censorship that we've seen. The problem is we're in the minority, and so we can ask a lot of groovy questions. We can and get a lot of people on the record when they come before our committee, assuming the committee pulls them in, and whether it's big tech or someone that we need. But at the end of the day, legislation that would make a change cannot be brought up to the floor because Nancy Pelosi isn't going to bring it up. So as soon as we replace Speaker Pelosi with so hopefully Speaker McCarthy or someone on the Republican side, win the Senate, then we can start putting some bills on the White House, on the Biden desk, and force them to sign it or veto it, and then look at overriding the vetoes. That's just where we are in this process with us being in the minority. It's unfortunate. So what can we do? We continue to message. We continue to push for oversight hearings, even doing oversight hearings off campus. That means they're not held in the halls of Congress. They're held across the street in different areas where we can stream with friendly news outlets like OAN and Newsmax and others that will show it, and we're bringing the border security people in that are willing to talk on the record. Bring energy people in that are willing to talk about energy issues because we can't get them in front of our committees, of the Committee of Oversight, Committee of Judiciary, Committee of Energy and Commerce, Committee of Ways and Means that are very important in a lot of the issues that you're talking about. So we're working on it, and we're going to continue working on it and try to rein some of these in. I think the Hunter Biden laptop scandal is going to be the thing that brings down a lot of the mainstream media because they have failed the American people on this, especially when it's juxtaposed against the Steele dossier and how they treated that fake document when the Hunter Biden laptop was actually real. So, next question, Dirk.
Yes, sir. Next up, we've got Sherry from Easley. Sherry, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
All right. I have a couple. I don't know if there's so much questions as pretty much everybody's feeling the same thing. They talk about pollutants. Well, we've got, I don't know what people know about the West they're called the westerly winds, I guess. Well, no wonder California is such a mess. That's coming from China. I mean, and I'm sure you guys all know that, I mean, everything that's polluted comes flying from the westerly winds straight to California. So that's why they're a pile of crap out there. As for the border, how many people, has anybody figured this out? How many adults, children have been killed since Biden has opened it and invited everyone over? I mean, crime has increased tenfold. People are found dead on ranches all over. They've got children and people packed in the little Obama cages. We don't know anything. It's like this big secret thing down here.
Sherry, I can't agree with you more. Fentanyl is one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now. We have the opioid epidemic. We have kids that are taking pills they don't know what they are, and they're dying. I know 4 people that I grew up with that have died from fentanyl. And I talked to somebody yesterday that is getting out of the military because he's being kicked out because he took a pill that he thought was one thing and it wasn't. It was something else. This is a major problem. It is affecting everyone. The opioid epidemic was bad enough, but now we're dealing with fentanyl, and really China and Latin America are causing this, and our southern border is causing this. And all it comes down to is President Biden's policies are allowing fentanyl to illegally cross our southern border, and it's killing tens of thousands of Americans. And we need to do something to stop it.
Yeah, the pollution from China is real. It's polluting the world. They're not held to the same standards by all the green initiatives like Paris Climate Accord, Kyoto, and others that the United States and European countries have been held to. We have allowed them to continue to grow unfettered in their energy sector, and that's a lot of coal and pollution. I think, Sherry, that's what you were talking about with westerly winds. It does affect what's going on in the western part of this country with pollution. William's right about fentanyl. We do first responders tour, and let me just pause and say, if you're on the call and you're a first responder, and that's EMS, that's 911 call centers, that's a police, that's fire protection, anyone involved in first responders, thank you for what you do. They all come across individuals that are in possession of these narcotics, and it just takes a little bit to get on your skin to cause you to get high, and in a lot of cases get to the point where these officers have to hit themselves with a Narcan to revive themselves, keep them from overdosing, from just sticking the hand in a pocket of a potential drug trafficker. So it's dangerous. A little bit of fentanyl on your skin can be deadly. So our officers are having to take very strong precautions against that. And that's all of them. That's EMS and healthcare workers and everyone. So it's bad. The other thing about the border, Sherry, I will say, is that we're going to see, if we haven't already attributed some of this violence to the Mexican cartel and the gangs and other things that are coming in across the country. We're going to see it in South Carolina, where just the nature of the cartel and the nature of the folks that are coming across their border that weren't raised in the same with the same respect for law enforcement that the folks in America, in the United States, were. So you got fentanyl, and you also have gangs. I think that's a lot of the crime is attributed to that. And Ralph may know a little bit more about that. He's on Homeland Security Committee.
Well, Sherry, I'll just wrap it up by saying that they attribute 100,000 deaths of Americans from fentanyl. And I would just tell you that I think it's a lot greater than that. And we're hosting a law enforcement roundtable that is going to get into what they're dealing with the fentanyl issue that we have. But think about this. To have 5 to 8 million illegals coming across the country that law enforcement is going to have to be dealing with, from a crime, from the drug issue that we face. I mean, the American people do not deserve this, nor did they expect it with this administration. But it's up to us to deal with it, and we will do the best we can. But this is an invasion first class, and we're paying a price for it. Okay, Dirk, next question.
So our next question comes from Ruth in Lyman. Ruth, you're live on the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you very much for letting me participate in this town hall meeting. My question is, what is our president's excuse for our medication that Americans, myself included, what's raising the price of our meds? I'm 65 years old and disabled, and I could probably buy frickin' fentanyl on the streets cheaper than I can buy doctor's ordered medication. Thanks.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of, Ruth, we've seen a lot of effort by the Democrats in the last couple of years to look at drug pricing, and it's been very insincere, because ultimately they want to pass the cost on to and raise Medicare and pass the cost on to the taxpayers. The development of the life-saving drugs that we see, there's a lot of research and development cost involved in that. And so we need to continue to have Republican hearings when we take back control of the House on energy and commerce, have Republican hearings with the pharmaceuticals to let them talk about drug pricing and how we can get drug prices down. There has been some efforts for seniors. I think you said you were a senior adult, to help them on the Medicare side. And that's been CMS, or Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, that have done some of that versus the insincere efforts through the United States Congress headed up by the Democrats. So they just want to raise taxes and pass those costs on to the working Americans.
Ruth, the Democrats have spent $7 trillion during COVID. $2 trillion was passed exclusively on party lines, and that has caused inflation. 7.9% inflation over the last year, the highest in the last 40 years. And those costs go everywhere. They go everywhere. Gas prices, cost of transportation, those costs have impacts everywhere. And again, I hate going back to this, but it's our costs have values, is what the president said. But really, his costs have value. His values have costs. I'm sorry. And the American people cannot afford those costs. So you are currently facing the challenges associated with the left's values increasing your costs, and we're going to do everything we can to hold them accountable and to turn our country in a different direction.
Ruth, I'll wrap it up. It's Ralph Norman. We're having hearings now with PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, which are the middlemen who are raising the cost. And we're trying to shine some light on what they're doing, read their contracts, and see how they're affecting drugs such as insulin, which has been around for 60 years, which should not be where they are. We need competition. We need to expose those who are ramping up the cost of medicine. And that's one of the things we're doing to try to help or shine some light on the costs that all Americans are paying. Dirk, next question.
So we're going now to Rupert, who joins us. Rupert, you are live on the line. What is your question, sir?
Well, I've got about a bazillion things I'd like to cover, but I can't. But the question I have for you is, what are the Republicans doing currently, right now, to reduce the size of government?
Yeah, I'll take that. We're doing very little because we are in the minority, and there's very little that we can do as Republicans right now. The efforts we have is to win the election in November. And this isn't a political call, so I can't really talk about the politics, political side of it, but we win the election in the fall, Republicans take the majority, and then we can start beginning to look at exactly what you're talking about, reducing the size and scope of government. When I came to Congress, I introduced what a reinstitution of the Byrd Committee, which is an anti-appropriations committee. There was Harry Byrd from 1941 until about 1972. They actually had a committee in Congress that looked at every line item in the appropriations bill, government spending, to look at redundancy, duplication, programs that have outlived their usefulness and fulfilled their purpose, and ending those programs. It was an anti-appropriations committee. That's one thing we do to cut spending. If you cut spending, you start reducing the size and scope of government. Then we need to look at, and one thing I hope to do when we do take control next year, I hope to gain the subcommittee chairmanship for energy on the Energy and Commerce Committee. And the future chairwoman, Kathy McMorris Rogers, asked me as I was talking with her about my desire to be that chair, what would be the first thing I would do and what would I look at? And I said, well, the first thing I would do, Madam Chair, if you don't do it as chairwoman, I'm gonna do it on the subcommittee, is bring the Department of Energy down, put them at that table, make them get sworn in, and make them justify their existence, because they were created in 1978 to lessen our dependence on foreign sources of energy. We're more dependent today on foreign sources of energy than we were back then. So they failed in their mission. If you were in the private practice, you would be bankrupt and a failure and go out of business. And so make them sit there and try to justify their existence and explain how they hope America can meet their future energy needs. And that's transportation fuels, but that's also electrical generation, not just wind and solar, which is intermittent. I'm talking about the 365, 24/7 baseload power supply that we need at BMW or Volvo or Mercedes or even Glen Raven Mills. So that power is always on, both at manufacturing, but also in your house, so that you have a refrigerator that you can reach in and get a cold beverage out of when you need it, and the lights are always on. That's what the Department of Energy was supposed to be focused on, but instead they focused on Green New Deal policies pushing us toward electric vehicles and renewable energy, which is intermittent and just doesn't work. So that would be one of the things I would do to reduce the size and scope of government, the Department of Energy. The last thing I will say is the Department of Education is another one that needs to be brought in and have them justify their existence, because we are redundant. We have state departments of education, then we have the federal government involved in a non-constitutional role of government. So I would do the same thing with them. I'll yield to one of my gentlemen.
Rupert, this is Ralph Norman. Here's what we owe the American people. Power for the sake of power is no good. We have to know what to do with it. And if and when we take back control, we have to have a plan. And what we have to do is a plan to balance the budget. Now, how do you do that? The leader has a lot of responsibility in setting what comes to the floor, what's being pushed, what's not being pushed. We need to find out what plan does he have? And I'm not talking about a 20 or 30-year plan. We need a 6 to 10-year plan to balance the budget. And just remember, every dollar that is spent in Congress has an advocate for that dollar as to why it should be spent. Just as you do in your family budget and your business, you have to cut things. We don't have an income problem, we have a spending problem. So what I think you'll see the Republicans doing is laying out a plan to balance the budget, see if leadership goes along with it or come to some meeting of the minds. It's insanity what we've been doing. To be frank with you, when the Republicans were in charge, and it's just on steroids with what the Biden administration is doing and the Obama administration's previous to that. So it's not business as usual, and I think you will see a plan put forward of programs that will be cut or on the table to be cut, and how we're going to balance this budget and get out of a $30 trillion deficit that we're in now. William?
Rupert, it's a very important question. Number one reason when I ran for office was the size and scope of the federal government. Spending was out of control. When I was campaigning, I often referred to then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral Mike Mullen. He was testifying before Congress in 2010. He said, the number one national security threat facing the United States of America is Congress's inability to spend within its means. At that time, we had less than $14 trillion in debt. 12 years later, we have over $30 trillion in debt. This is a national security threat. Our ability to continue to be the global reserve currency and to continue to manage our position in the global economy is dependent on our fiscal health. And we are running out of time. We are running out of time. So we need to get our financial affairs in order. We need to balance the budget. The next speaker, is going to be proposing some longer term planning to try to address that, to get some benefits from the cost savings. But we've got to, it might be the number one issue in front of us next Congress, because I can promise the Democrats don't care. I'll finish this answer with a little story. I spent 3 hours today in a hearing for financial services on a subcommittee where we talked about reparations, and the Democrat that was leading it wanted to spend $14 trillion. $14 trillion on reparations. We got AOC talking about $115 trillion for the Green New Deal. They're just living in a fairy tale. And we've got to get our financial affairs in order. We appreciate the question, Rupert. And with that, Dirk, we'll take another one.
Next up, we've got Karen in Easley. Karen, you're live on the call. What is your question, ma'am?
Why are we allowing Russia to represent us in the Iran nuclear deal? And why are we going to give them $10 billion?
Well, this started with President Obama and the Iran nuclear deal, the P5+1 agreement that was hashed out, was really just started with an understanding by Obama and people in his administration of redistribution of wealth. In their minds, if Israel has a nuclear weapon, it should be okay for other countries like Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Well, the fallacy of that is that, Iran isn't the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Iran is. They're exporting terrorism around the world and are responsible for thousands of deaths over the years, if not a much higher number. Iran is not a normal player within the global geopolitical world. And so Iran having a nuclear weapon, they're not responsible, but Obama felt like that they needed to. Then President Trump was able to shut some of that down and slow the process, but President Biden lifted sanctions on Iran, which would help expedite them to move toward nuclear weapons. And that's what you're seeing. It's wrong. We try to fight it here in Washington, in Congress, at every chance that we get. But unfortunately, administration, the way the executive branch is set up versus the legislative branch, it's kind of tough for us to do anything for a deal that's already been signed, sealed, and delivered by the Obama administration. And now President Biden is just continuing to foster an environment where Iran will get a nuclear weapon. That's wrong.
This is Ralph. Just to add to what Jeff said, I mean, you're right, Karen, to turn the negotiations over to Russia. Look what they're doing to the poor Ukrainian people. It makes absolutely no sense. That's why, in my opinion, this administration is sold out to the countries that don't like us. You can't make this many mistakes. Look at what happened in Afghanistan when you basically left $80 billion worth of military equipment for the terrorists that occupy that country. Folks, bottom line, as Trump was a proponent of, we have peace through strength. This administration believes that there's peace through weakness. He's showing that every day, and he's showing that in the actions. You can't make this many mistakes and give America away like he's doing. So it's again, the people don't deserve this, and there's got to be a change. William?
I agree with everything Jeff and Ralph just said, but I want to add one thing. What's next? What does the future of the global community look like? I think I'd be looking at Taiwan. The Chinese are watching everything that is going on in Ukraine and the manner in which the West and the United States are responding to Russia's attacks on Ukraine. They're learning from it. China believes that Taiwan is part of their territory, and it's been a contentious issue, and it's going to come to a head here in the next 2.5 years because they know what is going to happen. President Biden is not going to do anything. The biggest mistake of this president with Ukraine is that he told them what he wasn't going to do. He told them that under no circumstances he would put boots on the ground. He told them under no circumstances would he respond militarily. So when you tell your enemy what you're not going to do, it really emboldens all of your enemies. So we have Taiwan. They have been on the Hill for the last 3 months, meeting with every single member of Congress that will take their call because they are scared of what's next. Guess who else is on the chopping block? Israel. Israel has enemies all around it. Trump never got credit for all of the advancements he made in peace with Israel and all of the countries around it.
Abraham Accord.
Yeah,
right.
But so here we are. We got 2.5 years of a weak president, and Taiwan and Israel look around, South Korea is looking around going, who is going to make sure that we are not the next victim of an aggressor? So we're in a bad spot, and we need to show the world that we are strong. And this president is not able to do that. But thank you for the question, and third, we'll take another one.
So we've got Tanya on the line with us now. Tanya, welcome to the call. What is your question?
Hi, I would like to thank all of you for inviting us on this call. As a Colorado Freedom refugee, I would like to ask each of your stance on ESG, which is the Environmental Social Governance Score, and how you guys, what your plan is to combat that. My secondary question would be, how do each of you feel on term limits for Senate and House? Thank you.
Well, let's start with the second one, because I'm pretty sure we're all co-sponsors of Ralph's bill to term limit Congress. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
So we all agree, and I think if we could wave a magic wand, that might be the one thing that could actually fix this place. As to your ESG question, the wokeness of the left knows no bounds. The effort from the Biden administration to name and shame publicly traded companies that are engaging in fully legal but not politically correct industries like oil and gas is just absolutely terrible. President Biden is doing everything he can to run the oil and gas industry out of business because he is beholden to his radical woke base, all while the price of energy continues to rise, taking money out of your pocket. But Biden cares more about what the AOCs of the world think than about your finances. And it's not just oil and gas. It's whatever they don't like. The defense industry has had equal challenge that oil and gas industries have happened, and it's just getting worse. Who wants to take it from here?
Well, it's affecting the Second Amendment rights. You're looking at banks that are now saying to gun manufacturers and even retailers that we don't want your business and we're not going to bank you. We're going to deal with this ESG issue tomorrow and Energy and Commerce, O&I, or Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee with the big oil. There's a great article about hedge funds like Blackstone and Vanguard, how they're using your money if you have a 401k, using your money to leverage buying enough stocks so that they can influence board positions on major corporations and then help push this ESG initiative. It's been going on a while. It's a multi-pronged approach by the Biden administration to go after the fossil fuel industry, but also push the climate change green initiatives to woke companies. And you see what's going on with Disney. It's all the same wokeness across this country. We saw it with Coca-Cola and others after January of last year and how they've acted. So I'm glad you're following this issue from Fountain in South Carolina. Not many people are. I've had another conversation with a constituent from Pickens today about this. So I'm glad people are starting to wake up. I know we are here in Congress, both on the Financial Services Committee and within Energy and Commerce, and Whip Scalise and others have talked about this. There's a Congressman Andy Barr from Kentucky on financial services that has really led the conference on focusing on what the SEC is doing with disclosure requirements for publicly traded companies and how the conference is going to deal with that. Ralph?
That's right. Just to wrap it up with what William and Jeff are saying. ESG, for those of you who haven't followed it, is environmental, social, and governance. It is a litmus test that the woke culture is given to industries trying to shame them into basically following the Green New Deal. I was visiting a company in Sumter, South Carolina, and they said, one of the engineers said, Congressman, are there any battery-operated airplanes? Are there any battery-operated 18-wheelers delivering food to our grocery stores? That's the insanity that's going on with this left-wing group that's in power now. And they're trying to shame every company into having some type of a litmus test with ESGs, which is insane. So it's up to us to fight it. We've got a letter to the SEC on the proposed rule telling them to stop it. And all three of us will be a loud voice to say how insane this is, and we'll try to stop it. Dirk, back to you.
Well, let me add just one more thing to that, because it's not just ESGs, and that's the focus right now. But you're going to see the same thing with LGBTQ initiatives, pushing corporations, asking them with questionnaires, even like use a railroad that has a subcontractor that does all their maintenance, asking them how many gay, lesbian, women, African Americans, or whatever their litmus test is, how many they have employed. And that's going to be a determining factor whether that contractor is hired by that major corporation. You're going to see this because this is the wokeness that we're seeing across this country now, and it ties in with the ESG initiatives as well. Okay, Dirk.
So we've got Mike in North Augusta joining us now. Mike, go ahead with your question, sir.
My question is with the illegal immigrants coming across the border. Seems that our government, Biden, followed by his three stooges, can't seem to, or don't want to do anything about it. They're sticking them on buses free of charge after they've been processed, handing them a phone in hopes that they will call ICE when they reach their destination. But I guess I live in rural Edgefield County, so we have a lot of farms here, particularly peach farms. And I am seeing so many of these people that swam the river, holding on that tether, getting over here. What is South Carolina doing, if anything, to curb these unwanted illegal immigrants? I mean, it's bad enough we got the Irish travelers down the road, minutes away from me in North Augusta, who travel the United States ripping off elderly people and whatnot. But what is South Carolina doing, if anything, to curb keeping these immigrants or illegal immigrants away from here? Twice in the last 3 months, I have nearly had my vehicle creamed by these people, one by a drunk and another by a family that with Nebraska tags on their vehicle just last week at an auto parts store where people were selling food for a church. And I nearly got hit. And they don't even know how to drive in the United States. What is South Carolina doing?
Well, Mick, I guess you're talking about the Georgia Bulldogs coming across the river into Edgefield, North Augusta. I don't like that either. I'm joking. But first off, Bill Hickson and those guys down there representing you very well in the South Carolina General Assembly. And the state's doing all it can. This is a federal issue. The Supreme Court has been very clear, especially in Arizona case, that states can enforce federal law. Even though Scalia had a great dissent on that and said, well, if states can enforce their own borders and their own laws and federal law, then what are states? Are they truly sovereign, or are they just administering arms of the federal government? We want to make sure they're truly sovereign states for the most part. But every state is a border state. You heard me and Ralph say that because Biden has transferred these illegals into all of our states and soon coming to a community near you. Edgefield County's dealt with migrant workers for a long time, ag workers in the peach industry and agriculture in general. And we worked very hard when Trump was president, and Paul Ryan was actually speaker. That's how far back it goes, to work on a true immigration policy bill. Both conservatives, moderate Republicans, Tuesday Group, RSC, Freedom Caucus all got together and had a great bill until it was killed by the moderate Republicans who wanted to see more ag workers come across illegally for the farmers in California. Our peach farmers in Edgefield County, they do it right. They go through the agencies to have good workers, but they have to pay those workers more than they have to pay than the minimum wage, because the way the law is written by the Department of Labor, you have to offer a job to an American first, and if you can't find that when you hire the the farmer that is an immigrant, even though they're legally brought here, they end up having to pay more. So I know our farmers down there do it right. The problem is at the border, Mick. The border and the border states, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, and the challenge they have because of the long border. Trump tried to put a wall up, Biden stopped that, and now they're prohibiting the governors and the attorney generals and the National Guard in those states to actually protect the border. So we have way too many coming here. It's an issue that's festering here in Congress, and we're going to continue working where we can to push the Biden administration to enforce the law. The law says you can't come here unless you have a visa or permission slip. We're going to continue to push them to actually enforce the laws that are on the books duly passed by Congress. And Ralph's on Homeland Security Committee, so I'm going to let him talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, Mike, what we're doing is, one, as Jeff said, the only way to really cure it is get the wall built. President Trump built over 280 miles. We got to finish it. We got the steel there. We have contractors that are being paid not to work, that have to sign contracts, which is insane. And that will, we have to have designated points of entry. And the only way we do that is with a new administration. What our office is doing, and I'm sure William and Jeff's are the same, we've sent letters out to the mayors and the different municipalities that if they have a shipment of illegals coming into their town, their city, to notify us. I mean, I was on the border like William and Jeff were, and they're shipping them out in the dead of night on your dollar, flying them at our expense, taxpayers' expense, to all over this country. And it's illegal, but they're flaunting the law and they're violating the Constitution. If this isn't an invasion, I don't know what is. And Homeland Security, we've had Mayorkas testify, all he gets rhetoric, and they're just intent on maintaining their power by getting people in this country that, in their opinion, can vote for them. And hopefully we're going to stop it with the new administration, but it's been very, very frustrating to this point. And hopefully we'll get it corrected at the midterms. William?
I couldn't agree more with Ralph and Jeff. This administration is not enforcing our laws, is incentivizing people to enter this country illegally. We just can't continue down this path. Our biggest objective right now is to hold them accountable for their actions. We've sent countless numbers of preservation letters to all these different executive agencies saying, we're going to have the gavels here in 9 months, and you're going to be brought in to testify. You're going to be subpoenaed. We're going to get all your records. So we're hopeful that that will cause them to change course. But at the end of the day, this president probably knows he's not going to get reelected. His policies are so bad, it's outrageous. So I'm hopeful that we can turn the corner here in November with next Congress, with us having oversight authority and the ability to hold them to account. But the next presidential election is going to be the most important election. We say that every time, but I truly believe it. I just want to, Dirk, back to you.
Thank you very much. As I look at the clock, unfortunately, we're about out of time, so that was our last question. But Congressman Duncan, would you like to make any closing remarks?
Yeah, first off, I want to say thanks again for joining us this evening for this telephone town hall. I'm glad to be here with my colleagues, and I'm proud of the work they're doing here in Congress. We're sorry we didn't get to all the questions tonight, but I hope this phone call was beneficial, especially if you're in the 3rd Congressional District. The concerns you share tonight are important to us as well, and we're committed to fighting, secure the border, unleash American energy, restrain reckless spending, restore the values under attack from the White House, congressional Democrats. All the things you talked about tonight, we're working on, I promise you. And I don't know if we articulated that, but you can follow us all on social media and our websites and see exactly what we're doing almost in real time. So make sure that you do that. If you're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, just follow what we're doing here, and you really get a sense of the work that's being done here. Know that we'll continue pushing back against the Democrats' radical agenda, always defend freedoms and constitutional values that we hold dear. It's an honor to serve the 3rd District of South Carolina. And if you're a district constituent in the 3rd District and you need our help with the government agency, that could be visas, that could be Social Security, disability, that could be veterans benefits, a lot of different things we work on. My main office in South Carolina is in Anderson. That number is 864-224-7401. I just had a hiccup there, 224-7401. And then in Washington, that's 202-225-5301. You can call our main office here in Washington at 202-225-5301, or you can email me. You can find me, just Google. It's Jeff Duncan, .house.gov is our website. So it's an honor to serve, and I appreciate my colleagues giving me the opportunity to join them on this. And God bless you all. May God continue to bless the United States of America.
This is Ralph Norman. I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us. You could be anywhere. The fact that you've chosen to be with me and Jeff and William is an honor. Let me just say that now more than ever, we need courage to speak our mind, to make changes, to voice our opinion. Secondly, I will quote Winston Churchill, who said during his lowest time that there'll be a time when doing your best isn't good enough. We have to do what's required. And I would say that now, and it's now about we the people getting involved. Again, as Jeff said, we handle Social Security issues, we handle passports, we handle DD-214s, and on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, we're at Ralph Norman. If you have any questions in Washington, D.C., the telephone is 202-225-5501, and in Rock Hill, it's 803-327-1114. It's an honor to serve you. God bless each and every one of you. William, I'll turn it over to you.
Ralph, thank you. I just want to tell everybody real quick, on this call tonight, we had 23,701 constituents, 62,595 voicemails were left. We called a total of 144,800 people. We are working hard to represent you, and I think the participation in this event tonight, in this telephone town hall, is reflective of the fact that we're all concerned about the direction of this country. And I just want you to know that your representatives are equally concerned. I want to thank my friends, Congressman Jeff Duncan and Ralph Norman, for being here. We've had a great time tonight. We all can promise you that we agree it's an honor to represent you and your family in Congress. We're working hard in Washington to fight against these policies and leading our country in the wrong direction. Our country is on the wrong track, but we are working to turn it around and get it back on the right path. Please never hesitate to reach out to my office, 864-241-0175. Our website is timmons.house.gov. Social media is at Rep. Timmons. We look forward to doing this again soon, and we really appreciate it. And Dirk, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, and definitely thanks to all the participants, Congressman Timmons, Norman, and Duncan, for participating in this very special live event. I also want to thank everyone for sticking on the line and asking such incredible questions. If we didn't get to your question today, please stay on the line and leave us a voicemail. We will be in touch soon. Thank you again for making the time to join us for this important call. And as always, we hope you stay healthy and safe and have a wonderful evening. Good night.